Welcome back, everybody. You're due now. You were thinking about what's the job of the legislative branch? What are they supposed to be doing? Of course, the legislative branch's job is to create the laws, write the laws. That's one of their main jobs. They do lots of other things when it comes to approving the presidential appointments and declaring war and stuff like that. The main goal, though, is to write laws. All right, so for the next couple days, we are going to focus on the legislative branch, what they do, what their powers are, and who's actually in Congress right now representing us. So, like I said, their main job is to write laws. There are two basic parts to Congress. We call them two houses. There's the Senate, and there's the House of Representatives. The Senate House is considered the upper house, the more respectable of the two. Senators are a little bit more powerful than representatives. Uh, and historically, Senate used to be appointed, not elected. Now they are elected, so the differences aren't as big as they used to be, but the Senate is considered the more respectable of the two houses. Every state gets two senators, no matter how many people live there. California, which has got like 20 something million people, and then there's Wyoming that's got a few 100,000. Doesn't matter. Every state gets two senators. Each of those senators is supposed to represent everyone in their state. Right? So you have two people in the Senate who are speaking and voting on your behalf. We got 50 states, so we got 100 senators in total. They serve for 6 years at a time. So when they get elected, they get 6 years, and then they can get reelected again, and there's no limit to how many times they can get elected. They use rotating elections, so 1/3 of the Senate is elected every 2 years. They don't try to reelect them all the same year. They do a few this year, they'll do a few more 2 years from now, they'll do a few more 4 years from now. So they kind of spread out these elections. Here's a map of the United States based on which party the senators are a part of for each state. So here's Colorado. You can see we are blue, meaning both of our senators are Democrats as opposed to Republicans. So a Democrat is someone who would agree with Joe Biden, who's also a Democrat. A Republican would be someone who agrees more with Trump. So these blue states are states that have two Democrats. Red are states that have two Republicans. And this sort of gray purple is states that have one of each. Next, we'll talk about the House of Representatives. This is considered the lower house, less respectable house. Now, this one, each state gets a number of representatives based on their population. So, states with lots of people get more representatives. States with very few people get less. So, California gets like 50 something, Wyoming gets one. There's 435 total, if you add them all up, and that number's not changing. It'll always be 435. They redistribute them based on how population changes. So, every 20 years, they look at which states need to get every 10 years. They look at which state needs to add representatives, which state needs to lose some based on population changes. Representatives serve for 2 years at a time. So they go up for re-election every 2 years. The entire House of Representatives is up for re-election this year, and they will be again in 2 years. They only represent their district, though. They're not trying to represent the entire state. So there is a representative just for the city of Denver, basically. They talk about how they're representatives from Colorado, but really they're only representing their district. So when we vote on representatives, you're only voting on the one in your district. Here's how representatives are broken down across the country. Blue is Democrats, red is Republican. You can see we have a little bit more Republican than Democrat currently in the House of Representatives. This is how Colorado is broken down. It's hard to see, but this weird little teal section with the number 1, that's Denver. Denver is its own congressional district. We have our own representative. If you went to Lakewood, you'd be in this tan one, this 7th district. If you went to Aurora, you'd be in the yellow 6th district. If you went north, you'd be in this 8th district. And if you moved out of the Denver area, like down to Colorado Springs, you'd be in a different district. Here's how they look based on Democrat or Republican. You can see Denver is very strongly Democrat. So is a couple other districts. But then there's a few that are very strongly Republican. So we're kind of a split state. If you get out of sort of the Denver metro area and some of the areas in the mountains, most of Colorado is Republican. Here's how representatives changed over the last census, which was in 2020. You can see Colorado, we added 1 seat because we are a state growing in population. Texas added 2 because they're going really fast. California, Illinois, Michigan, those are states that lost seats because their population actually decreased. All right, so how Congress works. They're really only what we call in session about 1/3 of the year. A lot of their time is spent at home in their home states, talking to their people, learning what's going on. Only about 1/3 of the time are they actually in DC, working in committees, talking and doing stuff. Recently, that's been kind of creeping up. It was only supposed to be 1/3 of the year. It's probably up closer to like half a year now. They spend a lot of time in committee works, right? So whatever they're an expert on, they go into smaller groups to talk about laws, research things, interview people, deal with issues around that particular topic. And then they vote. They get into their entire house and they vote for and against laws, for approval, for appointments, all those things. So they have the power to create laws. They also have the power to tax people and borrow money. They have the power to declare war. They can impeach the president, kick the president out of office if they feel the president has violated any law. To impeach just means to put them on trial. If they're found guilty, then they're kicked out. Approve judges. We got a video that'll kind of talk about the powers of Congress. Your activity today is to read about Congress, then answer some questions based on their level.